Hello everyone, I'm George from Ireland. So here I am at the Air Force's Memorial in Egham, United Kingdom. So this was built in 1951, completed and opened in 1953, opened by Her Britannic Majesty, and it's to commemorate airmen and indeed airwomen of various Allied air forces who fought in the Battle of Britain in 1940. So it's not for the Allied air forces in the whole world in the Second World War or the whole of the war, just that particular phase of the war. Anyway, so I'll talk about what the Battle of Britain was. So France signed its armistice in June 1940. Now, Adolf Hitler was hoping that the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth would throw in the towel quite quickly. Indeed, when he conquered Poland the year before, he'd said that he offered them peace. He simply recognised that Poland belongs to me, and that's it. No reparations, don't have to give me an inch of territory. But the Allies said no, they were fighting on. And sometimes, sorry, I'm going to have to comment on what we see here. You see these lions passant, one of the symbols of England, not the United Kingdom, England. You will see them on the United Kingdom's coat of arms, the World Coat of Arms. The lions passing, these very long, stretchy lions wearing crowns, sticking their tongue out at you, rather cheeky. Anyhow, what happened? So Hitler was hoping to win the war. That wasn't the case. So he ordered Operation Sea Lion to be prepared. So Fall Seelover was an amphibious attack on the United Kingdom. How they're going to land? Now, his military chiefs advised him that this would be suicidal without first winning air superiority. Do you see the big kite? Okay. Because many of the transport ships would be sunk across the English Channel. Without that, and even if they got to land, if the Royal Air Force would be able to decimate them on the beach. So first of all, have to really defeat the Royal Air Force, and that's why this is the first ever campaign which was mostly fought, or almost entirely fought, in the air. And so that's why here you're going to see the names of almost 20,000 men and women who were killed in this on the Allied side. We're not talking about on the Axis power side. So you can see their ranks and their names all the way up these walls, all as we go around. Anyway, Hitler gave a speech on the 18th of July 1940, and he said it was my last appeal to reason. So he orated in bravura style, saying that there was no need that this war could continue. He didn't think that the war party in the United Kingdom would be able to force the British people to fight against their will, because the outlook was dismal. Obviously, the dominions and the colonies were fighting, but they weren't very industrialized. So then Adolf Hitler went on to say, if this war continues, I solemnly prophesy that one great world power shall be utterly destroyed. Mr. Churchill may think it shall be Germany, but I know it will be England. And he was greeted with most thunderous applause. Anyway, so from about the 10th of July, they began substantial bombing raids on the United Kingdom. First of all, with the objective of defeating the RAF, just shooting down RAF planes, blowing up RAF fields, and indeed destroying aircraft production, and had limited success on that. Now, the Luftwaffe, they thought that the Royal Air Force was much bigger than it actually was, because the RAF had radar, which was top secret. And the British one mainly because of technology, actually, despite Germany's reputation for technological prowess. In some things, the UK actually had the edge. I don't know anything about aeronautical engineering, so I can't weigh up the pros and cons of a Messerschmitt or a Focke-Wulf versus, what was it? Is it a Sopwith Camel or a Spitfire and things like that? So the Germans had no idea that radar existed. How is it every time they sent over a squadron, the RAF there had a welcoming committee to give them a warm reception? So they were facing substantial losses. At one time, Vyacheslav Molotov, the Soviet foreign minister, was in Berlin, and British intelligence happened to find out this. So he was being given a slap-up dinner at Hotel Adlon on Unter den Linden, under the limes, that street in the middle of Berlin. And Joachim Ribbentrop, don't call him von Ribbentrop, assured him that the British were going to be throttled in short order. The RAF launched a bombing raid just to prove they could do it, and show they were still in the fight, and they knew this would make an impression on Vyacheslav Molotov. So halfway through the banquet, the air raid sirens go, and they have to scuttle down to the bomb shelter beneath the building. And Molotov saying to Ribbentrop, "I thought you assured me that the British were on the ropes." So there was still fight in the Bulldog. But anyway, Hitler was incensed by this, so he ordered more raids on the Baedeker raids. Baedeker being the guidebook that people carried around Europe, saying if you go to this city, you want to see that cathedral or this art gallery, whatever it is. So to attack sites of cultural importance, which took the pressure off the RAF, because the Luftwaffe was no longer concentrating on airfields and aircraft factories, and was maybe the saving of the United Kingdom. And then just bombing civilian targets, also quite sensibly bombing ports and railway junctions to mess up the transport system. Couldn't get goods in that were needed, couldn't move men and munitions around. Anyway, the losses mounted for them, and Italy declared war in June 1940, and a few Italian planes involved as well. But then there was Adlertag, as an Eagle Day, a huge all-out raid the 15th of September, but the losses were really unsustainable for the Luftwaffe. If they were shot down over the United Kingdom, were captured. They're shot down over the Channel, they're invariably captured. If the British pilots or the other Allied pilots were shot down over the English Channel, they were usually rescued. The Luftwaffe had less flying time over the British skies because they had to fly over the Channel. They were taking off from France, which they controlled, the Netherlands and Belgium, which they controlled. This couldn't be continued indefinitely, and Hitler began to think that this was just unattainable, this objective. I mean, even if he had air superiority, they thought, we're not getting past the Royal Navy, they'll lay loads of sea mines, and huge amphibious attacks hadn't been successfully effected for centuries. So even if they had won command of the skies, it's dubious that they would have succeeded. And Churchill was preparing for an invasion, saying attack may come upon Scotland, England or Ireland, the south of Ireland as well as the north. The southern Ireland, of course, we were neutral. And from there, that'd be a gateway to the United Kingdom. It may come upon all three. So that's why these pillboxes were made, these little bunkers in the countryside. You sometimes see them, and they're very simple. There's an open doorway, there's no door, there are no windows, there's just openings. And you could put a hedge on top of it. Often it's controlling a bridge or something like that to shoot us, and they're coming. Then there was the Home Guard. Boys are just too young for the army, men are too old for it, doing some basic military training, some basic sort of static duties defending their local area. In the end, they weren't called upon to fight. So there would have been very heavy losses for them if they'd come. If they'd really come in substantial numbers, I don't doubt that they would have won, actually. So that's just a little bit about this, and must emphasise the role that non-British pilots and other aircrew played. Not everyone in the Air Force is a pilot, most of them aren't. There can be air traffic controllers, there can be mechanics and so on. So in order of the numbers who fought, there were people from the Royal Canadian Air Force, the Royal Australian Air Force, the Royal New Zealand Air Force, the South African Air Force, but that included some Zimbabweans or Rhodesians, as we would then have called them, the Royal Indian Air Force. And there was the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, not fighting in combat roles, but transporting things. Ferry Command, Air Transport Auxiliary, and the British Overseas Airways Corporation, that's now called British Airways. But again, that was in a sort of supportive role, transporting things, not fighting. The Air Training Corps, that's often for undergraduates or schoolboys who are just learning how to fly planes or perform other roles to repair them. So Amy Johnson was involved in this, and she was one of the UK's first pilots, female pilots, and she flew many long-distance flights on her own, but she crashed in bad weather into the Thames in 1941. That was the end of her. So there are 14 women commemorated here amongst roughly 20,000 names. So this was managed by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, which was set up in 1917. I don't remember the name of the man who suggested it, saying we've got to make sure that all these graves are tended and respect is shown to the fallen forevermore. And because they're all over the world, so soldiers from the erstwhile British Empire of any nationality, wherever they're buried in the world, they have their graves looked after by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, which is rather standardised. There's a certain democracy in death. Even though there's a rank system and there was a class system, they finally find equity when they find requiem. And that's why we have a cenotaph here, as in Greek for empty tomb. Now, The ancients had set a task dedicated to a named individual, but we have them to many, many people. And I can't remember, I think it was Rudyard Kipling who composed these words, "Their name liveth forevermore," which I'm sorry to say is a cruel lie, because most people are utterly unmindful of them and just total ingrates. Then you see the motto of the RAF there, "Per ardua ad astra," as in by endeavour to the stars. Okay, you saw the wreaths there laid, RAF and others. And then you see these three figures here. What do they personify? Justice, who's blindfold, holding the scales of justice and the sword, as in, without fear, without favour. She doesn't favour or disfavour anyone, got no favourites. And then we have, I can't remember who the other ones are. I think there's courage on the right and truth in the middle, holding the angel, holding the trump, not Donald, but the trumpet, and the laurel wreath. But that's often for victory as well. And even on the drain pipes, I see IWGC, Imperial War Graves Commission. Of course, now Commonwealth, which is the new edition of the Empire. For those former colonies and dominions which wish to be part of the Commonwealth, some of them don't, and that's fine. They have the absolute right to leave the Commonwealth whenever they so wish. Some of them have left, a few of them have come back. So this is a hallowed place. I hope I'm comporting myself with sufficient decorum. So great thought was given to all the features here. You'll see this little shell motif. I'm not quite sure what that's about. And now look up here. You see the Royal Coat of Arms, the Blue Harp of Ireland, the Lion's Passant of England, and the Lion Rampant of Scotland. There's something for Wales. Now remember, Eamon de Valera, Taoiseach of Ireland, as in our Prime Minister, he requested in the 30s, Ramsay MacDonald's son, because he was Commonwealth Secretary or something, to have the harp removed, because the major portion of Ireland was no longer part of the United Kingdom, but he was given short shrift. I don't know which coat of arms this one is here, and there are a few more of them. So no to call it crest. Crest is something that might be above the shield, not what's on the shield itself. Look, the coat of arms of the Indian Air Force, the four lines of Ashoka. There's a fourth one which you can't see. The chakra, as in the wheel at the bottom, with the two, where there's a bullock and the horse. Because Hindus, they can't force cows to work, they can force bulls to work. Okay, a symbol of Islam. Now there's some Pakistanis who are fighting, but obviously Pakistan as such didn't exist at the time. They were part of the Royal Indian Air Force. And, yes, this is the old one of Canada, if I got that right. Representing England, Ireland, Scotland, France, and then the maple leaves. The maple leaves are green there. And they only changed their flag, got rid of that symbol in 1955, and they got rid of the Union flag, which is in the top left corner. The Royal Coat of Arms again, and I don't know which. Oh, this is Australia. This is their coat of arms, one for the original states of Australia, not for the territories of Australia. I don't know what that one is. So you're seeing a little bit of heraldry. Anyway, it's at a splendid spot, commanding a most magnificent vista over the Thames Valley. With the naked eye, I can see the control tower of Heathrow Airport. I can see the Shard, the tallest building in Europe outside of Russia, and so on. And the various lakes, man-made ones, King George V Reservoir, Queen Mary Reservoir, which are very close to Staines. I always thought they're expanding Heathrow. Why don't they build on that, not knock down that village? And they could build above the reservoirs. We could still have the water there. We could still have people sailing there as they do. If the planes crash into water, it's far less dangerous than crashing into land. It'll douse any fire for starters. And build a new terminal above that on stilts, build a station, and on and on. Okay, so you've got the measure of this place, I suppose. So the Battle of Britain, when did it end? It's dubious. Some people thought about 20th September. Some people says it went on to late October, last 3 months and 3 weeks by the reckoning of some people. Then the Blitz began as in lightning, which was really nighttime attacks only, not attacking in the day. So the RAF wasn't trying to shoot them down with planes, because they might accidentally shoot down their own planes. There were barrage balloons with wires between them, as in, you couldn't see the wire as a pilot. If you flew into the wire, your plane was sliced. And the barrage balloons also white to reflect the lights of searchlights. And then the anti-aircraft brigade trying to shoot down the planes. So you can write your thoughts there if you come along. This is just a very boring little side room with a sink. Surprises are not locked. And then this is a chapel, I suppose. But there's nothing here about any particular religion, just to gather and remember, perhaps pray. No symbols of Christianity or anything else. quite an echo effect here. And then I can see another plane taking off from Heathrow Airport. So, and then, oh well, I suppose they are angels, so that's specifically Christian. There was a dove as well, as in a symbol of the Holy Spirit, the Christian symbol right at the top. Perhaps you've seen it there. So this is a little bit about this Air Force Memorial Place. We're very close to Runnymede. Runnymede is about a mile down the hill through very dense and verdant vegetation, because it's meant to be a symbol of liberty, Magna Carta, sign there, of course. Anything else I should point out? I'm not sure. Well, yet more symbols. So I've got to emphasise the Dominions played their major role in this. You see another coat of arms of Australia with the emu, is it? Or is it the ostrich? I can't remember, and the kangaroo. The two animals which can't go backwards. Okay, and then another larger royal coat of arms, Dieu est mon droit, God on my right, the lion and the unicorn, just like the George Orwell essay. You see the crown at the top, that's the crest, the rest is not. Admire, usque admire, the same thing but of Canada. You see they've got the Union flag and the fleur de lis of Bourbon France, as in pre-revolutionary France. Okay, from sea to sea, as in because Canada stretches from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. And these stars, I don't know about constellations. That's not Australia as well. I know Australia's got 7 stars. Seem like the starry cloud to me. So you've got the idea. And remember, it's names all around the wall. And some people have left photos to commemorate their loved ones. So it's quite a substantial hill. It wasn't an easy cycle, I can tell you. So when did the Battle of Britain end? Well, Battle of Britain Day is the 15th of September, when the Germans launched a major attack and they suffered heavy losses, so they decided they had to call it off. But 20th September, that's when many people commemorate it. So we have to be thankful. And look, there's a memorial, a little piece of wood there with the poppy to Noor Inayat Khan, GC standing for George Cross, a posthumous honour. Oh, and you can get them in the shape of the crescent moon as in the symbol of Islam. I get it, because she was an Indian Muslim who fought for the British Empire, but she paid with her life for her valour. So anything else I should point out about this? I'm not sure if there are ceremonies here. They're probably here at Remembrance Day or Remembrance Sunday, the nearest Sunday to the 11th of November, because of course 11th of November is the end of the First World War, and the United Kingdom commemorates all its war dead from the First World War and all subsequent conflicts on that Sunday. So, and then up high I can just see a crown with a star above it. I'm not sure how you get up to that viewing platform. I mean, those side doors, one of them must be to the stairs, but I think they're locked at the moment. So people can come here to remember their relatives or friends who've died. There are a few Battle of Britain pilots still alive. Vera Lynn was the heartthrob of the moment from the time, so that the force's sweetheart, and she was singing songs like There'll Be Bluebirds Over the White Cliffs of Dover. She was born in 1917. She just died a few months ago in the midst of lockdown. Will you please say hello to the folks that I know? She sang in a rather American accent. All things American were very much in fashion at the time. The United Kingdom was banking on the UK saving Britain's bacon, and indeed was the case. Obviously the United Kingdom was not thankful enough for the Soviet Union, who did the bulk of the fighting, without which it's hard to see how the Allies would have ever have won, maybe drawn. So photos of these youths who fought in the war, I mean perhaps some of them survived, just if they weren't necessarily killed in the war. Though a lot of them were. When actually looking for the dates of death, all the ones I've noticed so far, they were killed in the war. And likewise these chaps. So, and then that's a plan of what it looks like. Yeah, there are stairs you can go up from that shrine area. Okay, so now you see what this memorial is like. I hope that you found it educative. So I shall ring off now. So if you appreciated this, then kindly donate to me, because I desperately need these things, donations to keep the channel alive. You can donate to me on PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Callahan spelled Callaghan. So thank you for your time. Please book online lessons with me and all sorts of humanities subjects. If tourism ever reopens, I have a tour guide in Londinium. Toodaloo.